Welcome to Be Truly Heard with me, coach and voice expert Anne Leatherland. If you're a woman in business looking to speak with authority, warmth and authenticity, this is the podcast for you. We'll explore valuable personal growth strategies alongside vocal skills, so you can overcome confidence barriers and communicate what's inside. Your voice matters. It's time to be truly heard. Hello and welcome to Be Truly Heard. I'm your host, Anne Leatherland, and I've got an absolutely wonderful guest with me today, Wendy Garcarz. Now, Wendy is the founder of Refirement, a movement helping women to redefine retirement as a bold new beginning. A futurist and strategist with over 20 years' experience, she empowers women over 50 to thrive with confidence, purpose, and possibility. And I love this bit. She also writes espionage thrillers under the name Wendy Charlton, weaving in powerful themes about aging and resilience. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you very much for having me, Anne.
It's an absolute pleasure. So before we get into today's topics, I'd love to start with something personal. What's been on your mind recently when it comes to women's voices and visibility?
It's funny you should say that because I've been struggling with a particular issue. So lots of us are using AI, whether it's in our personal lives or whether it's in our business lives. And increasingly, what's starting to become widely accepted is that the algorithms that our social media platforms use and that AI itself uses have a confirmation bias because they're written by men, essentially for men. And so we're actively having our voices stifled by some of these algorithms. And lots of people will have noticed the changes on LinkedIn recently. And I've run a couple of really quite disturbing research tests, if you like. And the stuff that comes back is definitely a gender bias around amplifying male voices and quietening female voices.
That's very worrying.
Yeah, it
And
is.
this is a bit of a controversial question. Do you think that's on purpose, or do you think it's just that the programmers and the people who've put together the AI happen to be men? Do you think it's more likely?
I think if I was a conspiracy theorist, I'd say, of course, it's absolutely designed to do that. But the reality is, I think that what happens in a lot of fields of tech is that people go on and develop new bits of tech and never stop and ask, should we be doing this? Or what are the consequences of us doing this?
Absolutely.
And I think that the consequence, unintended consequence, definitely, is that those male biases are definitely creeping in. And it's affecting, you speak to any woman who's developed a business profile on LinkedIn and she will have seen her engagement fall off a cliff in the last 6 months.
That's terrible. Mine has dropped a bit, and a lot of my posting is about women and what Marianne Seagart has coined the authority gap.
Yeah.
And how I can help people in terms of speaking and communication to start to reduce that authority gap. I like to think of it as a voice gap as well,
Yes,
in a
it is.
sense.
Yeah, it is.
A voice gap. But I have noticed that my impressions have dropped off.
Yeah.
And I know that people who say more outspoken things about women are finding that their posts are not going at all, or that sometimes they're even censored or thrown off LinkedIn.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. If you look at some of the examples, and certainly some of the women I've spoken to, and I'm not talking to women who've got small followings. You know, one of the women I was speaking to at the beginning of this month had got 100,000 following. And she posted a post that she put up, post linked with her specialism. She put it up last year and she got 30 odd thousand engagements and she put exactly the same post up, just updated for today, put essentially the same post up, and she got under 300 engagements with it. Now,
Yeah.
that is not coincidence because she's not an isolated case. So, what worries me is if we've got big platforms that we are present on, that we're trying to do our business through, that we're trying to grow our business through,
Mm,
if the algorithm is actually discriminating against us doing that,
mm,
what chance do you stand when you can't even enter into a conversation with LinkedIn? And in fairness, it's not just LinkedIn. All of the platforms use essentially the same generic metadata that their algorithms are based on, which has this significant confirmation bias. But people think that when they look at the internet, they're looking through a window. They're not, they're looking through a mirror.
yes.
You
Uh,
get reflected back what you are seeing and what you're posting out. And so by using this confirmation bias, we're just going to reinforce the fact that we want more of the same. My feed in the last 12 months has been filled with testosterone sales posts from predominantly men. And I've even had people contact me via email to say what's happened because I've dropped from their feed. They're not seeing any of my content. So
gosh.
something's going on, Anne.
Something definitely is going on. I don't have 30,000 followers, but you can tell if
Mm.
you look at your stats
Yes, you
what's
can.
happening. So that's a very worrying thing. And I suppose moving forward, we're going to have to find ways of drawing people's attention to this and hopefully getting something done about it. But it brings me neatly on to the idea of visibility and ageism as well. I know your company is Refinement, that you're working with retired people, but that can also be older people who are not retired. I'm 62 and I'm still working and I'm still very happy to be working. And when I first met you, Wendy, something that really struck me was when you told me that women over 60 are far less likely to be able to get a business loan or a
Yes.
business bank account. So women often feel pressure to step down or downplay their achievements
Yeah.
as they get older. And is this overall cultural bias and lack of visibility part of that? Why is this pressure so persistent, and what can we do to challenge it, do you
I
think?
think we are dealing with societal norms. So I think that society see women as this sort of generic carer role. So, when her job is done in terms of raising children, and then you've got the empty nest stuff, then it's okay for you to sort of kick back a bit and start to relax and wind down because you've done your bit. Well, do you know what? That is not the experience of modern women.
Wow.
There's been so much in the media, in the press around menopause, and that, it's almost treated like a disease that's curable. As women, it's something we've navigated since time began. It's a stage in our life. It can't be cured. Some of the symptoms might be managed and made easier, but essentially, it is a stage that we will all go through. And for me, what I got really frustrated with, and it's one of the reasons why refinement came into being, is that I couldn't understand why suddenly they were seeing this as a stage of decline. Because all
Mm,
of the women that I was coming across, 50 plus, many of who want to start a business for the first time, or maybe have run a very successful business for 10, 20 years, get beyond that point and think, whoopee, this
yeah.
is my time. I haven't got to worry about sorting out kids or doing school runs or whatever. I've got a bit more money in my pocket. I can do what I want to do and I can live the life that I want to live. And societal stereotypes tries to put every barrier that it can in that way. And I just thought, this is not right. I have earned the right to decide what my retirement looks like. And if that means that I want to continue to run my business until I'm 80, that's my choice. Nobody should put me in a box and say, now you've reached that age, dear Pat Pat, you go and sit over there and drink coffee in a garden centre all afternoon. That's not who I am. It's never been who I am.
Yeah, so it It can be one of the most active times of our life.
Exactly, exactly. And then, of course, as well, one of the things that women very often underestimate is they get to this age. My goodness me, they've got such transferable skills. They've got all of this wisdom. They've got this experience and stuff. Why would you want to put that into mothballs and shelve it? The world needs that level of expertise, that level of common sense, that
Yeah.
level of resilience that women have. And somehow we're supposed to just go away into a corner and not talk about it. Well,
Yes.
phooey to that, because all of the women I'm speaking to are ready now to live this next stage of their life, almost like the next big adventure. They've got passion, they've got purpose, they've got skills, and they've got the time to do what they want to do with it. And we should be encouraging that.
I completely agree. A number of my clients, once they hit 50, are finding that they're sidelined,
Yes, yeah,
that they're overlooked for promotions in their company, and they're not asked to help with the junior team, the people coming up who need that experience and that resilience and all those skills that those ladies have to help them.
it's really interesting because it's not like there isn't any proof out there. There is plenty of social proof. Forbes magazine did a study, I think it was last year, that showed quite categorically that the big companies, the Fortune 500 companies, that have got multi-generational workforces with senior women in higher levels within those organisations are more profitable, they're more resilient, they're more sustainable. All of the things that you would want as a shareholder to be part of, you get when you have multi-generational workforces. And yet we
Yeah.
still see women at age 50 or 55 being put out to grass. And you
Yes.
just think, what are you doing? Why would you, all of that intelligence, all of that expertise, why would you shelve that?
Again, it's a real bias, isn't it? And
Yes,
it's
it
the
is. Yeah.
problem and something that damps down our voice as
Well, I
women.
just think you wouldn't buy if you were a football manager, you wouldn't buy Ronaldo and keep him on the bench, would you?
No,
And yet,
absolutely.
effectively, that's what companies do with women leaders all the time when
Yes.
they reach that 5-0 mark.
Yes. We have so much more to
We
offer.
do.
And I suppose all of this then affects the way women feel and think about themselves and can really affect what I call the voice in the head. So I think about the inner voice, which is truly us, what we'd really like to say, how we'd like to show up in the workplace, in our lives, wherever. Our outer voice, our physical voice that we actually use, and our inner critic, the voice in the head, is the thing that just sits there all the time chirping and gets in
Yeah,
the way.
yeah.
So we're looking to get from here to here without this bit getting in the way. And that's very difficult. I'll just say that again. And that's very difficult when we have brains that warn us about things
Yeah.
1,200 more times a day than they say positive things. So it's hard. You shared with me a lovely story when we last talked about a realization
Mm.
that your inner critic was sounding like your middle sister. Tell us more about that because I think it's a great story.
So I think I've always done a lot of personal development and self work. And during that process, I've learned a huge amount. But one of the biggest shocks that I had was when I was doing some work on this inner dialogue. And the coach that I was working with at the time said, well, who's the voice? And I said, well, it's mine, it's in my head. She said, are you sure of that? And I said, well, yeah. Next time it happens, listen and just check out that it is your voice. I was absolutely shocked that it wasn't, it was my middle sister's voice. And the relationship that I've always had is that she's tempered the sort of ambition that I had. So she would have always been the one that said, oh, well, don't you think you're being a bit ambitious about that? Or do you really think that you could do that? I'm not sure you could do that. So that's been our relationship all of our lives. So what you realise is that your inner critic picks the voice that is most likely to make you stop and limit your response or limit your behaviour. And so, of course, in my case, it was my sister. Since I have known that, what I've realised is that inner critic is a fantastic impressionist. It's used different voices that will make me stop and think, oh, probably shouldn't be doing that. So I've noticed sometimes it's been my mum or sometimes it's been my dad, the voice that I've heard. What you realise is that you are combating quite a complex psychological issue when you're dealing with your inner critic. It's very wily and it's very manipulative, and it
Mm,
will do whatever it can to keep you in your comfort zone. That's its purpose. It's there to
yes.
keep you in the comfort zone. And it knows that you can deal with mediocrity. It doesn't know that you could deal with success. So its job is to keep you in this space that is mediocrity.
I think that's so insightful, Wendy, and so powerful as well, that it's much easier for us to sit there
Yeah.
and stay in that safe space. Because, as you've said, that's the whole point of what I'm calling the voice in the head, is
Yeah.
to keep us safe. It comes from the subconscious, but
Yes.
it's the bit that tells us don't put your fingers in the plug socket
Mhm.
or don't run into the road in front of that bus. But 1,200 negs compared to one positive
Yeah.
in that brain is a lot, and that's really going to hold us back. So, a lot of the work I do is helping people to actually speak to that part of themselves and say, hey, thanks for keeping me safe. Thanks for doing this, but I'm actually all right, and I'm going to just try something new and I'll be fine. That's a bit of, I suppose you might call it a reframing.
I think
Or,
that needs to happen, Anne, because your subconscious develops and sort of stops developing when you're about 7. So your subconscious that you're dealing with might sound like an adult voice, but
mm,
it's a child.
yes, yeah.
And so that's why it finds change really scary or things that you've never done really frightening and tries to hold you back. Because if you were a 7-year-old, of course you wouldn't do things that would put you in danger, because it's at that moment when you first started to realise that actually your actions have consequences. So you have to be careful now. And there is some personal responsibility about keeping you safe. The difficulty is then that inner voice has got a child's logic. So you can't rationalize as though you're speaking to another adult because essentially you're not.
You're not. No.
So it's using the same sort of reframes, as you've just said, as you would with a child,
Mm.
positive reinforcement, and plenty of that to build that confidence so that you can go out and do that stuff. And as you say, if you've got that huge disproportion of negative stuff that's happening, you have to reframe, you have to balance that out. You have to look for social proof that says, do you know what? If you go and do this podcast, or if you go and speak on that stage, or if you go to networking meetings and meet people that you've never met before, the world's not going to come to an end. You'll be okay.
Precisely. Yeah, we're not going to fall down that hole and die. Anyway, and just bringing us to the idea of women's autonomy and legacy, because I know that you're working on projects around that for thought leaders and experienced professionals. If any woman listening today wants to claim more autonomy and visibility in her work or community, what's one practical step she could take?
I think it's to practice giving one idea out of your head and share it with somebody every day. Just one idea. Not because you want it to be accepted and adopted, simply because you want to share it. That's it. There's no pressure on you. All you have to do is say something from your head that you wouldn't have said normally, you would have thought twice about. Just share it. Because for me, we get into this habit of silencing ourselves
Yes.
all of the time. And that's what makes our visibility so much more difficult. We diminish because we're hanging on to everything that we are, everything that we believe, everything that we want to share. When I did my TED talk, the TED Talks are there and have always been there because they are a stage for ideas that are worth sharing. Women have ideas that are worth sharing every single day of
Mm,
their lives. The
mm.
problem is they don't share them.
Absolutely. And one of the tenets of my work for other people and also for myself is what I have to say is worthwhile.
Yes, absolutely.
What I have to
Absolutely.
say is absolutely worthwhile. And I should say it. I think that's what you're saying for everybody as well. And I love that.
It is. And one of the things that I would say, Anne, is that for me, lifelong learning has been a central tenet of my life. I'm 65 now. I learn something new every day, and
Yeah,
I have a real passion for learning. One of the things that you realize is that it's that thirst for knowledge. And one of the things that that gives you is the ability to know what it is you don't know, but not to get hung up about it. So I am the
absolutely.
first person to say, actually, I don't know about that, or I need to talk to somebody else because I've got a very sketchy idea about that. There is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with saying, I don't know. What should follow that is a curiosity to find out.
Yeah, and an attempt to do so.
Yeah,
I think the only time we stop learning is when we're unfortunately passed on, when we're dead. And who
that's
knows?
true.
We,
I have a saying, and that is we don't grow old, we get old when we stop growing.
yes, I love that too. I love that too. That's a great place to get to. Wendy, thank you so much for everything. That's gone really quickly, and it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I know that refinement is a very powerful thing, so I'll put links in the program notes for you. Is there anything coming up that you'd like to mention?
Yes, we really excited. We've got our first national conference coming up. It's on the 19th of November. And because we are an organisation for women who want to rock but not in a chair, anyone over 50 who is really interested in what this next phase of their life is going to be, whether it's their second act or in some cases in their third act, if you want a day that is filled with learning, collaboration, opportunities to connect with like minded women who just want to celebrate and lift you up, then have a look. We'd love to see people there.
Oh, great. So let me have the links for that as well, and we'll put those in. It's been a pleasure. Wendy Garcarz, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute ball. Thank you.
It's been great. I think we must have you on again. And I say that to so many of my guests because you're all so brilliant. And that's it for this week, folks. And I'll see you next time for a solo episode. You'll have to wait for the topic, it's a surprise, but I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Be Truly Heard. If something landed with you today, share it with a friend or leave a review. It really helps more women to find their voice. Want to go deeper? Join my email list for exclusive tips, resources, and invitations to events. You'll find the link in the show notes. Until next time, remember, your voice is powerful. Let's make sure it's truly heard.